Welcome to the first episode of SteamLUG Cast. My name is Cheese, and with me I have John Drinkwater.
Hello.
And Swordfisher.
Hello.
And so in our first episode here, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're planning to do with the our audio cast and cover a few Linux gaming related topics.
Why don't you introduce yourself, Cheese?
Alright, my name's Cheese. I do a lot of things. One of the things I do is run the SteamLUG group, which is a 5,000 member group on Steam. Also, Meklu, who is in the channel here with us as well, started the original SteamLUG IRC channel, which grew out of the Steam for Linux thread on the Steam forums, which we sort of need to pronounce last rites on, I guess. It was a fairly long period where all Linux-related titles were sort of merged into one big monolithic thread, and it was really exciting to see.
It's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, this one's huge. I actually got one of the forum admins to give me access to a couple of the other archived threads, and so far as I'm aware, this one, which now has, just going through to the last page here, now has 4,420 posts.
Wow.
It's huge. So yeah, we the thread's kind of wound down a bit since the client was released, and people can, they're now interacting with people directly via their friends lists and stuff, and a little bit less necessary to congregate in this one thread. But I kind of miss the way that it brought different people together. I thought that was really, really interesting to see this kind of melting pot of Linux users who were keen to talk about gaming and Steam-related stuff.
At least from that, though, we have the Linux Gaming Reddit channel where everyone can post, and that's gaining interest at the moment. What was the last count of users for that, Swordfisher?
We're up to 12,425, I think.
Nice.
See, and that's been steadily growing for a bit, so that's quite a few.
Yeah, it rose insanely when we released, not we, but when they released Steam for Linux.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so how long has that subreddit been around?
I think it's for 2 years.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Cool. So another thing that I did was I designed the stylized tux logo that the Linux gaming subreddit uses. The original design for that is CC0, so if anybody wants to play with it, they're welcome.
And we'll put a URL for that in the show notes, won't we?
Yep.
I'm just hunting it up now.
I guess it's time to introduce myself. I came to the SteamLUG group fairly late. I mean, what was it? December that I sort of got involved with actually doing stuff as part of the official Steam group. Because I'd been quite active on the Steam forums for all the bug reporting, Valve actually contacted me to become a group moderator for Steam for Linux.
How did that come about?
I guess I just spent an awful lot of time, noticing duplicate bugs and sort of helping get information. And Frank, who sadly has left Valve now, he just emailed me out of the blue and said, can you help? And that was over Christmas. And he promoted me to a bug triager on their official GitHub page as well. Along with me at the time was another user, Mr. Schism. He isn't really active in the sort of SteamLUG community, but he's quite active on GitHub. So at some point I'll try and get him on, and we'll go from there. How about you, Swordfisher?
Yeah, well, I joined SteamLUG on RSC at the same time as you, I think.
Pretty much, yeah.
I was quite inactive at the beginning because I didn't know anyone. But I think it was in February I started planning the events for SteamLUG.
Yeah, it would have been about that.
What was our first event? Was that TF2?
TF2.
Half-Life.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Half-Life 1. It was just, I think, 3-4 days after the release, so it came nicely. I also moderate the Linux gaming subreddit together with John and Power Talk, as he's known on RSC, and Pencil Abuser on Reddit.
It's a good name.
Yeah.
I guess that's it about me.
Okay. I guess we should talk about what we're doing this for. Do you want to start that, Cheese?
Yeah. So the goal, the cast itself has grown out of sort of post-event discussion that we've had following our normal SteamLUG events here in Mumble, and a couple of people have said they might be, they enjoyed the chats, and so we came up with this idea that we'd try and do a regular audio show, semi-regular maybe, where we kind of just chat about Linux gaming stuff and try and provide some casual, insightful discussion for that might be of value to our community and the broader Linux gaming community. What attracted you guys to the idea?
I don't really know. I'm not really that confident talking myself. I think we were just interested to make sure everyone we knew in the community that wasn't getting up-to-date information from, either the Steam website or Reddit, that we could do a sort of a fortnightly show that would recap everything that had happened and, inform people about stuff that is going to happen, sort of like crowdfunding and other stuff. And
yeah,
we'll just obviously we'll see how it goes. We would really appreciate some feedback, and we'll take it from here.
How about you, Swordfisher?
Yeah, well, the nice thing is that all of us have some deep roots in the SteamLUG communities and gaming on Linux communities. So that makes some more sense for us to talk about it, because we have some, what do you call it? Yeah.
Insight.
Yeah, insight, exactly. You do your stuff, interviews and the humble visualizations, and I mostly just remove posts on Linux gaming and make events for SteamLUG. And John knows every bug in Steam.
Yeah, I just try and make sure Valve has frictionless bug fixing, really. Just make certain that they only see the bugs they need to, and everything gets sorted as soon as possible. That's all.
So are you the only community guy on the GitHub repo now?
Well, as I said, there's Mr. Schism.
He's still around?
He is. He's probably less frequent than I am. But I mean, he does work while I'm asleep, so I guess I tend to see less of his contributions just because, if we are efficient, I shouldn't really see it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. Would be cool to perhaps get him to come in as a guest for a future episode and chat more specifically about GitHub stuff.
Yeah. Definitely.
So maybe we should move on and hop into our next, I don't know, are we calling these segments? I don't know. Which is to look at what's been happening in the SteamLUG community for the moment, because of what we're doing. We're probably going to focus a little bit more on what we're trying to organize on the admin side with regards to the website and events and things. So to start with, here's a quick recap on some of the stuff we've been working on. We've put together the SteamLUG.org website with huge thanks to Meklu and Swordfisher for putting in some mileage there.
Yeah.
And getting that up and running. We've still got plans for where we'd like to go. We want to integrate Steam login and get some polling type stuff up so that we can do votes and stuff. When we did our name change vote, we had an issue where lots of people, I don't know about lots of people, some people were trying to vote lots of times, which was a little bit disappointing. So it'd be good to have some kind of nice authenticated system for that. And we also want to expand the project stuff. We've got a bunch of projects that we need to move on that are kind of in the works, and the projects page is kind of going to be where information on that lives, and for where it's appropriate, the ability to participate. How do you guys feel about the website at the moment?
Well, it's under construction, as you might say. Looking forward to having the stream page more updated and having more streams for the games multiple streams or one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely in beta at the moment, isn't it? And we're working through it. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's going to be quite a good resource in the future.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice to bring everything a little bit closer together in terms of having IRC and Mumble and the group news kind of all in one page or site.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. We also had Dan Haribo help us with getting an IRC bot up and running, which relays our news posts and events into the IRC channel. We're probably going to expand that a little bit more to give reminders and stuff, which will be fun. We have had a couple of people asking about whether we're going to have a wiki, and it's something I kind of think would be nice, but I'm wary of having too much overlap with stuff that already exists. You
mean like PC gaming wiki?
Yeah.
That's a fair point. I don't think we should have any sort of game-related information in a wiki, really. Just because there's definite overlap with PC Gaming Wiki there, and they do such a good job at it.
Yeah. It feels like it'd be more beneficial for everybody if we could pool resources on that front and create one awesome wiki rather than have two not quite as awesome wikis.
Yeah, we also have the SteamLUG list, which I usually update. There's new releases and...
Yep, you, Soap, Expor, myself, a couple of other contributions. And that's hosted on GitHub under, is it Steam Database?
Yeah, I believe so. SteamDB.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll put in a link.
Yep, certainly. What we didn't mention when we mentioned the IRC channel was where it is. It's #SteamLUG on Freenode.
Yes. Sorry.
No problem.
If we did have a wiki, I'm feeling like it would be nice to have the sort of how-tos for installing Steam on particular distros. Maybe less or more transient type stuff like linking to PC Gaming Wiki articles and to Valve GitHub bug reports and stuff for people who might need a little bit of extra direction or know where to look for stuff. But I'm just really kind of worried about getting too bogged down in duplicating stuff that already exists in a really positive way.
I think if we put a couple of useful bits of information, such as on Fedora you need to put in an SE Linux policy in for Steam and their source and gold source games, because they use certain features in libmiles that quite a lot of people frown upon, but it's something that Rad Game Tools will have to work on, so obviously they can't do anything. And what that does is it limits, you can't listen to in-game music in most of those games with SE Linux, and sometimes the client crashes with it, so it's information to know about, really.
Yeah, there is a bunch of kind of really Linux specific stuff that may not have a home on places like PC Gaming Wiki and so forth, that we could potentially be would be benefiting our community and the broader community.
Yep. But of course, looking towards the future, an awful lot of that information is going to shrink as obviously bugs get fixed, and software in Linux that obviously has bugs also get fixed.
Yeah, for sure. I think potentially the other place that a wiki might become helpful might be in sort of general administration and coordination of community stuff. So brainstorming future events and that sort of stuff. It feels like the Steam community discussion stuff. Maybe it's just my personal dislike for it, but I find it to be a little bit less accessible and harder to keep track of.
It's definitely slow, and it's quite hard to sort of... I mean, it only shows you a few results per page, and it's sort of slow to load that, and then, notifications don't always... It is a bit messy, isn't it?
Yeah. But by the same token, it would be great to see a little bit more activity there, and a little bit more vibrancy. It would be sad to detract from gaining any kind of critical mass there.
I think if we had a wiki and had it using single sign-on, so that any Steam user can sign into it and contribute, then that would probably be the best of everything.
Yeah. What do you think, Swordfisher?
Yeah, that would be nice. But we just have to make the single sign first.
Quite a lot of wikis support OpenID signing in, so it should work right off the bat.
Oh, OpenID and Steam are federated, or?
Yeah, Steam uses OpenID and OAuth.
Oh, that's nice.
And Rex just asked an interesting question in the Mumble text chat there about whether or not the Steam Linux, it's not really a wiki thing, is it? Whether the Steam Linux site is only for games.
What else could it cover? I mean,
well, there are applications on Steam now.
Oh, that's a good point. Have any come to Linux yet?
Not that I'm aware of, but it sort of seems...
There's potential there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. Definitely an interesting thought. That's another good question. Is there a need for apps on Steam for Linux? I think perhaps, maybe. I mean, I see Steam as a content delivery platform for proprietary software. And in that respect, applications certainly fit into there. If Adobe want to distribute Photoshop, for example, or something,
if they ever put Photoshop on Steam for Linux, I imagine it would actually sell reasonably well.
Right.
I think part of the issue is that Ubuntu Software Center only covers Ubuntu, and I think quite a lot of the audience for it don't look at it too kindly. So having a Steam app store, it's not a bad thing. I mean, obviously we're going to get comments from FOSS users there, but we're going to talk about that later. So
yeah. So I think that that on that note, that the value of Steam in that space is that it's a recognized content delivery platform that is more or less cross, distro agnostic.
Yeah, pretty much. Which is one of the advantages of it. It's also, it's cross-platform as well as cross-distro. So you buy something somewhere, and as long as they've got it in all the places you want to use it, it's probably a better bet than buying in the Ubuntu Software Center.
Definitely.
Right. Should we recap the events, or?
Yeah. So Swordfisher has been doing events since, what did we say, February?
Yeah, the 1st of February was our first event, Half-Life 1. And we've been doing quite a lot since then. I think it was in March I did 2 events a week, and that was a bit too much for me to administrate. Starting it up and all that. I cut down. And we went down to 1 per weekend. Really. And I hope we can do more in the future.
I think that we're keen to get additional people who want to, organize or coordinate, help coordinate events, and then you can make the event, the Steam events for them, and I can do the Twitter announcements and news posts and stuff, and in that way, kind of have a more open, collaborative approach to managing events, and that frees you up to do the stuff that you're keen to focus on, and allow other people to, highlight the games that they care about.
Yeah, by all means.
For people that haven't turned up to any of the events so far, when do we hold them, and when are we likely to hold them in the future if anyone wanted to contribute?
We also have a thread on the discussion forum for SteamLUG, where you can submit your favorite games for the upcoming events, so I can plan more and better.
At the moment, our scheduled start time is the same time as this show, but tomorrow.
Exactly.
Which is, what do we say, 20 o'clock UTC?
Yeah.
Which is like 6 a.m. for me. So yeah, you want to give us a bit of a rundown on the recent events that we've had?
Yeah, we had the Left 4 Dead 2 release party, and I didn't attend it myself, but I heard it was great.
We had quite a few users playing it. It's quite brilliant.
I think the download size of the Left 4 Dead 2 beta made it difficult for some people. I mean, I hadn't finished downloading it when the event went off.
I hadn't either. I just had to sort of listen to everyone having fun. But I mean, everyone was so excited when it came out. I mean, everyone was livid, possibly.
Yeah, the atmosphere was great.
It's definitely quietened down now, but I think with Half-Life 2, everyone's sort of playing single player as well, and because Left 4 Dead 2 is in beta, it doesn't interoperate with all the other players in Left 4 Dead 2. So I think people have they've popped in for a couple of games and they're excited that it works, but they want to get in with their friends who obviously aren't interested in downloading however many gigs it is for the beta as well.
Exactly.
It's nearly 20, I think.
It's certainly big, yeah.
I think it was 18 gigabyte.
So on that note, we also have Rake has organised a couple of SteamLUG specific Left 4 Dead servers, as has another person whose name I forget.
It was Space Pope.
Ah, there we go. So huge thanks to those guys.
Yeah, and he's called Grinsekatze, I think. Pronounce it that way. On RSC. Give him some props. And Salamander Rake too.
We've already had feedback from a couple of people who've used the servers that they've been good. And it's great to have some SteamLUG stuff sitting at the main menu for anyone who's in the group. You know, just sort of 2 clicks and you're in a game.
Exactly. We also had the recurring TF2 event. Is something that we're gonna keep on going with. Probably the same for Left 4 Dead 2. So we have more TF2 and Left 4 Dead 2 events because they're fairly popular.
Yeah, it's our most popular stuff so far, I think.
And they're easy to manage. I don't have to do much besides updating servers once in a while. And Salamander Rake helps out with the backup servers in case I break stuff.
Or I break stuff.
Or I break stuff, yes.
Yeah, that's more likely. Yeah. I also did an experiment last week on Wednesday. I tried to make a single player event where people were supposed to join and play along with me, so we wouldn't all be scared and amnesia. What happened instead was that nobody said anything, so I was scared shitless by myself. So I was alone at the game and on Mumble. Well, there were 6 people on Mumble listening to me going, oh, oi, oi, oh. But yeah, it was fun. I'm doing another Amnesia event next week at the same time at Wednesday, 700 UTC.
Are you starting from a save game at all for that, or from scratch again?
Yeah, I'm starting from the save game. Because
do you know where you are in that? So if people want to get ready to join you, they'll know where you are.
I was in the library with some books. Yeah, obviously. Where
a bit vague, but maybe you could share your save file.
Yeah, if I can figure out how to do it, I'll put it up so people can join me.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
If I can get up, I'll try and join. 3 a.m.'s kind of more difficult for me.
It's the best time for Amnesia, though. So yeah, then we had the Red Orchestra Østfront, 4155, I think it's called.
That event went on for a little while. I wasn't playing, but I was hanging around in Mumble. It sounded like you guys were having fun.
Yes, I heard that when the tank map came, people were quite reluctant to keep playing, but
it was definitely a big map, yeah.
Yeah.
I left just before that, I think.
But we'll Salamander Rake and I are planning to use infantry only maps next time. so we shouldn't have that problem.
Yep, that's a good idea.
But the thing about Raid Orchestra is it's a bit harder game than Call of Duty and Battlefield. So it might be so off-putting for people at the beginning. Quite fun.
I think it's harder to actually spot people in the game compared to those other fine titles.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I found I've only played a very tiny bit of COD and Battlefield, and I found people very hard to spot in those. I'm also red green deficient, which probably doesn't help.
Probably not.
I also have the same color blindness, so.
How about Kerbal Space Program, John?
That didn't go down as well as I hoped. More my fault than anyone else's. A friend popped over, so I was unable to get to start the event, and we actually only had one person turn up, and that was Akko, who is in the chat at the moment, and I'm sorry for that event sort of dying on its arse.
I think we should do it again. It's a really interesting game, and I'm keen to.
I'm going to sort something out in June to play, so if anyone wants to sort of turn up and launch rockets into space, sometime in June we'll have a Kerbal Space Program event.
Yeah, and I hope I can buy it before, so I can join too.
Cool.
Pretty fun game.
Speaking of Aoko, I think they've attended every single SteamLUG event and deserves a round of applause for that.
Clap, 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 clap.
I would clap, but it might deafen the recording.
But seriously, it's pretty cool to have people who are regulars, and it's great to see familiar faces.
The same goes for Rake.
Yeah, Rake as well.
Boots here quite a lot as well. Soap, Metsu.
That's true.
We've had quite a few that are quite regulars.
That's super nice. Well, for the upcoming events, we have TF2 planned tomorrow at the same time as this audio cast started.
Okay, that might be a problem if we're going to release this file in a day or two.
So that might be a problem.
It might have already happened.
Yeah.
It's on the 25th of May. So.
Yeah, exactly, at the 2000 UTC. And on the 29th, we have Amnesia. I'll be playing further on my save game, and I'll be streaming too. So you can watch me being scared. And I was having a webcam last time. Gonna see if I can figure out how to get sound on both of the things.
Are you streaming that on Twitch?
Yeah, I'm streaming on Twitch.
And that's twitch.tv/swordfisher.
Yeah.
We've got a page set up on the website which has the stream the live stream as well.
I'll probably look into having a SteamLUG account for it, so we all can use it.
Rake is worried we're blaming him for something. No, we were congratulating you for turning up so often.
Oh, yeah. And then on the 1st, we have Killing Floor again. It was quite popular last time, and I had a lot of fun, even though it were filled with zombies, and I don't like zombie games.
Yeah, that game does seem more popular than I would have expected, but I'm looking forward to that again.
If people love it.
Got any Dosh?
I think that's about it for the events.
We also have been talking with the Frozen Bite guys about doing a big Trine 2 thing, and maybe getting some of them to come and sort of host games that we can join and switch around with and stuff. And they're kind of keen. It's just a matter of ironing out when everybody's available, so we'll keep everybody posted on that. So next up, we'll probably talk a little bit about Steam related and Valve related news. For anybody who's been living under some kind of massive rock, Steam has been released for Linux. We had our initial announcement, was that October, I think?
It was earlier than that. Or you mean our one?
No, the actual confirmation that it was coming.
The first Valve blog that expected us to sort of email them to sign up for the beta.
Just the first Linux blog post, I think.
Wasn't that midsummer? I thought it was July time or something. Let me check.
Oh, maybe, actually. Let me open it up. After you. So it was announced last year. Valve put together a survey to collect information on prospective beta testers, and were overwhelmed with a huge number. I think it was 60,000 within the first week.
Yeah.
Of people who were interested in being involved. So that was started off as a closed beta for, was it 5,000 participants? Wow, July. It was July.
Yep, the blog post was Steamed Penguins, and I'll link it in the description.
And the people who participated in the original beta got a copy of Serious Sam 3. There was a bit of confusion about whether or not that was going to last beyond the beta, and a lot of people seemed a bit upset when it was taken back off them later. But hopefully that resulted in some sales for Crow Team.
Yeah, I bought it. I was quite surprised by it, really.
Had you played any of the previous Serious Sam games?
I don't want to date myself, but I did play the first Serious Sam when it released on my computer at uni.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like Serious Sam 3 doesn't have the same kind of I don't know, it feels like it's trying a bit hard compared to the older titles. The older titles were trying less to have some kind of serious story behind them. But it's fun.
Just skip the cutscenes.
Yeah, and when you're doing a co-op play, skipping the cutscenes is probably the most enjoyable moment of the game.
Yeah.
But that was another event we had for SteamLUG. How many people did we actually play from start to finish? It was sort of...
I think
it's just you and me and one other person that stayed for the whole event.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to drop in and out. I like started at the beginning and played the first couple of sections, and then joined for the last level.
Yeah, I remember that.
Where we had to find a walkthrough.
Nobody knew how to kill the final boss.
That was hilarious.
Awesome.
And I managed to get disconnected halfway through, so I missed an achievement for playing the whole thing through, which is like, ugh, seriously. Sorry, cheers, you.
Does anybody recall how many titles Steam for Linux launched with? I think there was TF2 and Serious Sam and a couple of indie games. I think at the very beginning.
Oh, it's so long ago. There were quite a few titles in the library that just weren't enabled, which is...
Yeah, 20 or 25.
I thought it was more like 12 or something. But anyway.
It did expand across the beta, so anybody in the closed beta would have seen far fewer initially than people who joined in the public beta a bit later. But that's since expanded to well over 100 games now.
Half of my Steam library is Linux games.
Very nice. Very nice.
More than half, actually. I have over 100.
I've got just about 100, ones I've actually bought. So there's definitely a fair few that I haven't. So probably over 150 now.
Yeah, nice. I've got 89 at the moment.
I kind of went on a collector spree, and I just wanted to have all the games while I could.
Nice.
Yeah, wasn't cheap though.
No.
So Valve have been focusing on releasing their own titles. Initially we had Team Fortress 2, and then we saw a whole bunch of Gold Source games, Half-Life 1 and its family of titles, which was really interesting to see. We had CSGO. I think, what have we got left? We've only got Dota 2, CSGO,
Portal 2.
And Portal 2, Left 4 Dead 1. Is that it?
We've also got Counter-Strike, what is it? Condition 0 deleted scenes. That's it.
Deleted
Yep.
scenes, yeah, exactly. Don't you forget that.
I think Alfred said today that he's looking at updating it to Steam Pipe in the future.
Oh,
but
nice.
No promises. So
yeah, well, he said that he wouldn't do it because he didn't have time for it. So
well,
that's progress.
all of the team
Oh, yeah.
are currently working on Source
Alien
at the
Swarm.
moment. Oh yeah, Alien Swarm. And he'll get back to...
I love that a bunch of people just messaged me directly to say Alien Swarm.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fan service for that title. I don't think I've played it.
It's really sad that that it hasn't been given just a little bit more attention by Valve, because it was released as a kind of, here's an engine and a couple of default maps, go forth and be a community and make stuff. It's really sad that it hasn't gotten workshop support, because I think it's the kind of title that would have really grown a good culture and really sort of seemed to sort of stretch the limits of what workshop could do.
Was it just too early then, or did they not get a community from it? Or, I mean, there must be a reason they haven't put in Steam Workshop support. Did someone leave that cared for it?
I honestly don't know. I think that Skyrim, being a launch title, was considered to be high profile and important. I mean, it's all speculation, of course.
Ugh, that game.
Launch title for what?
For Steam Workshop, Swordfisher.
Oh, okay, yeah.
User-generated mods and such.
Because the type of content that you can get into Alien Swarm is generally a lot. I don't know. You see people making new swords and new weapons for TF2 and animal replacement skins and stuff. But Alien Swarm is geared towards getting the community to make full campaigns and stuff like that.
Fair enough. I wonder if it will get updated and then there will be a renaissance in contributions to it.
I certainly hope so, because there is a whole lot of really good community content out there, but it's all confined to, fan websites that the casual player doesn't know about, which sort of makes the community itself a little bit more inaccessible. I think it'd also be fantastic to see the in-game level editor that they've got in Portal 2 expanded to work with Alien Swarm, because it feels like that would be a fairly good match as well, with the isometric view, kind of giving you a very specific shape and feel for levels. Because I know that a lot of people feel kind of restricted with Portal, just because the kind of interface that the editor allows is kind of, it doesn't. I feel like it probably doesn't match quite that well to sort of first person space.
All I can say is, now you've mentioned Portal 2 and editing, I cannot wait for it to come over.
Oh, I know, right? Very exciting.
Yep.
I don't even own it.
What?
Aha.
Well, someone will have to gift it to you then. And it's not going to be me.
That was my thought.
I'm down one gift on you at the moment.
Well, I have to say, we've got Portal 1 out now, and I am super happy about that. I plan to play that through another 5 or 6 times before the end of the month. I love that game so much.
Well, speaking of, I'm really impressed with how well Half-Life 2 and Portal have ported over, really.
Yeah, aside from a really awesome bug where everything was passing through the floor and walls as though it was both red and blue portals. It was just kind of cubes floating around everywhere. I tried to put a cube on a button and it bounced a few times and shot off into infinity. Aside from that kind of stuff, it was solid from beginning to end.
I really honestly think that bug was just for you, Cheese. I don't think I've seen anyone else report a bouncing cube anywhere.
If it was, I feel blessed, because it was lots of fun until I got to a level where I couldn't progress without putting a cube on a button.
Yep. Well, speaking of source titles, I just wanted to give people a recap on what's been happening on GitHub. Quite a few people reported bugs in Half-Life 2 that were caused by NPC scripting failing. So either cutscenes would get stuck, characters would sort of pause and be waiting for input. And from what I've been told, they believe they found the fix for that. So there should be an update coming either I think it's tonight, or it's come out today. So if everyone would like to replay Half-Life 2, that bug should be squashed. There've actually been quite a few community contributions on GitHub for some of the changes that went through when it got updated to Mac. So stuff like the skyboxes being slightly broken have been fixed. That's
So were they like texture contributions?
no. I'm not that up to modding in Source and the rest, but they're LMP files that I think they're sort of like they edit the BSPs, etc. Blah blah blah. But basically, the skyboxes were getting distorted in widescreen resolutions. So what they do is they set the field of view inside the map file to make sure that, you know, when you load the game and there's a blurred image and then it fades into the actual level. The problem that was happening was that the blurred image was different to the level image. So it actually, when it faded, it went from, you know, one position to another, and it just looked a bit ugly. So they're basically just distortion fixes, and I think an awful lot of Half-Life 2 fans, not just ones on Linux, will be very happy with that. And what I did do just before the podcast started, I emailed Alfred at Valve, and I asked, is there anything that our listeners can help them with that possibly they need more testing with? And they just came back that the scene fix that they've just pushed out, that's the scripting bug, they would love people to test. And that's, you have to start from new save game because save games store state in. So you have to basically either start from scratch or jump to a new game in a new chapter, and just play as much as possible. And then the other thing, what else did they want? Oh, if anyone has corrupted save games, please get in contact, because they have a small issue with a small amount of people, and they just want to work out how prevalent it is and if they can reproduce it in a way that will help them locate where the problem is. Okay, that's about that.
Is that just Half-Life 2 that they're after save games for?
The save game corruption bug covers Portal and Half-Life 2 and its episodes.
Yeah, okay, because I've got a corrupt Portal save that I backed up somewhere.
Though some of the save game corruption is actually, when the beta went live, there was some code that was wrong in save games. So they put it back to how it was, but that meant that all save games for pretty much a fortnight into the beta won't work anymore. So if you've got a corrupt save, it's either it's a week and a half old, or it's because of this bug and they need help fixing it. So if you can try to work out what triggers the bug, then they will be very happy.
So on that note as well, maybe there's scope for touching base with Alfred and saying, hey look, maybe we can organise a SteamLUG event for a game that needs testing, like Half-Life 2 for example, and do a kind of focused SteamLUG test session.
That would be nice.
That might be doable. I'm more than happy to play Half-Life 2 for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, same here. Great game.
So Swordfisher, did you want to mention the notes I put down for Half-Life and Half-Life 2 mods?
Oh, the thing about you solved the loading of exe files.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, previously when you added a new mod to Half-Life or Half-Life 2, it would try to load an exe instead of the shell script. Kind of broke the whole intention of having mods. Well, that's supposed to be fixed now in the beta Steam client, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And I'm sure we can link to that blog post you made about loading mods up.
Yes, sure, do that.
Actually, I've got the link here. There we go. So also still on the sort of Valve news front is during the development of, or during the porting of Valve's titles, they started to interact directly with driver development teams. And one of the Valve blog posts, which somebody else can link to, talks about their interactions with Intel and how valuable it was for them to be able to work through and profile the source engine's behavior inside the graphics driver stack, which is something that you don't normally get when you're developing software, because most graphics drivers on most platforms are closed source and proprietary, so you don't kind of get the same kind of glimpse into where bottlenecks are and stuff. And likewise, the Intel guys said that they had a fantastic and very insightful experience being able to see how their drivers behaved with a real-world engine rather than all their test cases and stuff. So I thought that was really interesting for Valve to be able to highlight how having this kind of source sharing workflow there really sort of sped up what they were trying to do and benefited their porting process in general. Were you guys as impressed as I was? I mean, maybe I'm just a nerd.
Sorry, I got the link and I've pasted into the show notes. But I'm incredibly impressed with how happy they've been with the community and FOSS developers and proprietary developers all working together and benefiting from the something that I think an awful lot of people on this side of the fence take for granted.
Yeah, and it feels a bit like SDL2 has been pushed along a bit by
oh, definitely,
by that. And there's also the 2GL or TOGL or however they're pronouncing it, the abstraction layer between DirectX and OpenGL that they're using for source engine titles and presumably gold source titles.
Oh,
which they've been talking about a little bit.
I was calling it Toggle.
Yeah, Toggle maybe.
That's a cool name. I think they actually mention it in the GDC talk, and I'll link a YouTube in the show notes again because that's publicly up, I think, to watch.
Oh, actually, I've just been corrected. Gold source is native OpenGL, which I should have remembered because I always run it in OpenGL.
It used to ship with it. I think all they did recently was strip out the old Direct3D gubbins and.
Good on them.
Now, I know they talk about 2GL being a shim layer, but is that compile time shim or runtime shim?
I honestly don't know.
And I'd be interested to know if it's one or the other. But
it would be.
I watched that presentation, and for the life of me, I can't remember.
Yeah, I watched two because that talk was given in a couple of places, and it was done in partnership with some Valve people and some NVIDIA people, if I remember correctly. So on that note, somebody was telling me very recently that in the source GTK is a library called GLMGR, which is presumably the predecessor to Toggle that they were using for the Mac ports. Now, I haven't had a chance to bust open the SDK and check that out, but I thought that was kind of interesting if that's the case, if this sort of compatibility layer has been released in the source SDK, then that's stuff people can look at and poke with.
From following the GitHub, as far as we know, the SDK is going to be ported, but only insofar as that you can build mods for the 3 operating systems. I don't think they're going to be porting any of the tools like Hammer or the rest.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
That's just to answer Rake's question. Well, I mean, we don't know. They haven't said anything more than is publicly visible on the GitHub. So all I can say is that things can change. So don't feel sad about it, but be hopeful that something might happen.
And Valve always have been a very unpredictable entity. You never know what they're going to do next. I mean, when the gold source titles were released, everybody was stunned.
Well, yeah, I didn't think anyone expected Half-Life to see the light of day, and especially not just Linux but Mac as well. I think, well, all the Mac news sites probably got linked more than the Linux news sites for that event, at least.
Yeah, it's like didn't a bunch of Mac news sites, they got sort of special Apple themed promotional images before the announcement was made.
Really?
Yeah, like the day before,
That's
a whole bunch of places were sent like there was a picture of Francis from Left 4 Dead, and it had "Hate Different," and there's a picture of a TF2 turret and a Portal turret, and it says "I'm a PC and I'm a Mac," and that sort of stuff.
Oh, you're talking about the... Right. No, I get what you mean now.
Oh, sorry.
I thought you meant for this recent Half-Life. I got a bit confused then.
No, for the Steam for Mac launch, sorry.
For the 2010 event.
Yeah, was that when it was?
What's interesting is, I think it was quite a few years ago. I think if you go to Half-Life 2's Steam store page, the first video that actually wants to play is the Apple, that famous Apple video that they redid.
With, 1984.
Yeah, 1984 reference. Which is surprising because that's a Mac-only video that is for all the 3 platforms now that they show Half-Life 2 off with.
I love that it's not actually part of the game as well.
Yeah, but it's a rather cute video.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought most of the Mac promotional stuff was nice and cleverly done. I felt a little bit disappointed that Linux didn't get a similar treatment.
All I can say is when or if Source Filmmaker comes over, I'm going to have a stab at making something.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Something along the lines of the IBM Baby Linux advert, if everyone can remember that, where he's the child that's growing up.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to adapt that into like a tux doing it or something, but
he'll become a skilled gamer and learn to swear at people online.
Wow.
Oh, that's Xbox Live.
Yeah, that's not Steam. That's definitely Xbox.
It's good though.
Right, so should we move it on because we are dilly-dallying a bit
with the Steam trading card beta.
Yeah.
And obviously, I was hooked at the beginning, and I was just throwing my money at the screen. Then I had to add my new credit card, and I've been blocked on the Steam market until the 28th. So I can't do anything on the market. I'm just looking at my stuff that can't be sold.
So you're hopeful that someone will gift you some cards then, are you?
I just want stuff.
So what is the trading card beta?
Well, it's like a traditional card game where you can collectible card game. You get by playing games on Steam. You can get for CS:GO, Team Fortress 2, Dota 2, Portal 2, Half-Life 2, and Don't Starve, I believe.
Don't Starve is a great game.
And you can then modify your Steam profile with backgrounds, and you can use random emoticons now, like a head crab. You can get some coupons every time you craft a badge when you collect a complete card set. And they have experience too.
So what happens? You play a game, you get cards, you then craft the cards into a badge. With that badge you get XP, and with that XP it gives you more features on Steam. When you get to level 10, I think it is, you get the chance to change your background, pick a showcase, which is showing off achievements or what games you like. And you get more friends on your friends list. For each level you get 5 more friends.
Who are these people?
I don't know.
Oh, they don't add 5 friends for you.
No.
You can add 5 more.
Oh, I see.
The cap of your friends list is 300 people. For each XP level, you get an extra 5. So at the moment, I've got a maximum limit of 305. Doesn't really help. I've only got like 30 friends, but
only 30.
I've probably got more. I'm just
reading through the comments. I can see people are quite torn about the trading cards.
Yeah.
I did see a comment when it was announced, which amounted to, good, the gamification of gaming, because that's what people need to be excited about games.
I've definitely had comments about it. It is very well. It it's pay to level, isn't it?
Well, you don't have to pay, so...
Well, you say that, but unless they're going to lift the card cap, at the moment, whenever you're playing a game, you only get half of the amount of cards you could possibly get to be able to craft a badge. So
unless it's
Sorry?
Unless it's Dota 2.
Oh, you can get all of Dota 2, can you?
No, actually, it's quite tricky. If you have the Dota 2 premium account and was enrolled before you became enrolled in the beta, before they launch it, for every you'll be able to get 4 of the cards, and for every $9 you spend, you get 1 card more. But now they changed it back, so you, if you got the premium account afterwards, they started the beta, you can only get 1 drop per $9 you spend in the store.
But that's not capped to how many cards you need for Dota 2's batch, is it? It's just basically $9 per card.
Yeah, more or less, plus half an hour to find the card.
But for something like Half-Life 2, where you can't buy any additional things for it, you're only ever going to get 4 drops out of 8.
Yeah, then you're supposed to trade with your friends if you have any.
But then once your friends have traded, they can't get the badge. See, this is why people are upset about it.
But then you can trade.
It's a bit off.
Yeah, but no one forces you to use it.
Oh no,
you know?
not at all.
But it still does create, in most social circles, this would be more or less a class barrier, and that is defined by your willingness to spend money on stuff other than games on Steam.
Certainly. Anyway, let's cheer ourselves up with some FOSS gaming news.
Hooray!
Yay!
Who wants to start with that?
You go.
I just wanted to quickly mention 0AD. They're doing a crowdfunding event. I asked them on Twitter, is it going to be soon? They've got no feedback, so I'm going to bring it up in a future podcast.
Okay, that's kind of cool. A couple of people have been talking about OpenMW. Now, I actually have not really touched it. I've only played the original game in Wine. You guys got any thoughts on it?
I've skimmed their weekly videos a couple of times. They went from just being able to render the world to opening doors, having AI pathfinding stuff for me. They are definitely iterating quickly at the moment, and it would not surprise me if you can pop in a full game of Morrowind probably by middle of the summer.
The work that they've done is hugely impressive. I'm
Yeah.
You know, even though I haven't used it, I am kind of blown away by the scope of what's already been accomplished.
And the nicest thing about it is the games after it, Oblivion, Fallout 3 and Skyrim, there's still quite a bit of work, but having the foundation there at least doesn't make it as monumentally hard as not having an engine at all. So I'm really excited to see Morrowind natively running on Linux. At least it's not by Bethesda, and Fallout 3. Oh, I can't wait.
I haven't played any of the Fallout games, but it would be kind of cool to be able to play the rest of the Elder Scrolls titles natively.
All I can say is you don't know what you're missing.
That's exactly true.
You can get away with not playing Oblivion, and probably Skyrim too. Just play Morrowind.
I have Oblivion. I was actually kind of disappointed by Oblivion, to be honest. I'm a big Morrowind fan, and felt like perhaps the series had taken a slight downward turn, and for that reason I've steered clear of Skyrim so far. So it'll be interesting to see what that's like when I eventually am motivated enough to pick it up.
They definitely jumped. The change between Morrowind and Oblivion was quite console-y. And then to Skyrim it went even further when they, changed all the class stat stuff and everything else. And I don't know. Along with all the problems they had on PS3, I just wasn't that pleased with it.
I guess my biggest problem with Oblivion weren't really interface so much as a sort of setting and story. I found Morrowind to be much more compelling.
It was also an awful lot bigger, had an awful lot more people, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
I loved that in Morrowind everyone hated you, that you were an outsider and you were treated as such, and you had to prove yourself to the game. and that kind of scaled up to all levels, whether it be the way that NPCs interacted with you via dialogue, or whether it was coming across a dungeon or something that you were too weak to go to. But the way that Oblivion scales everything to match your character, you never feel any kind of real sense of accomplishment or progression.
Yeah, and all those Oblivion gates just dropping in, it just made it quite a chore. I mean, it wasn't on Grand Theft Auto 4 sort of nagging you to come play pool, but it was pretty annoying, at least for me.
I mean, it's fun in its own right, but I still think that Morrowind's probably the peak of the franchise, at least so far as what I've played.
Yep. So you wanted to talk more about wine?
Okay, so we have native Steam for Linux, and that's fantastic. And I know that a lot of people are very excited to be leaving wine behind, as far as their own, using it for playing games goes. But at the same time, the project has benefited a lot of us for a long time, and I think it's worth, giving some time to acknowledge that, and that it still allows us to play games like StarCraft and Diablo 3 or I don't know, that's all I really use wine for these days. But yeah, I thought it might be nice to do just a quick recap of some of the recent updates to wine. They've been doing fortnightly releases for some time now. I'm not sure how long, but it looks like maybe a year or so, at least, which is pretty cool. Most of the recent bug fixes seem to be focusing on macOS stuff, which in some ways is understandable. I wonder whether or not they've lost a little bit of steam now that we've got native Steam for Linux. That wasn't really meant to be a pun, but it's probably a bit confusing. Yes. So they're using, in the release that came out, this is 1.5.31, which came out today. They got a new version of Gecko, which is based on Firefox 21. How did we get to 21? Artificial version inflation makes me cranky.
No hate.
But yeah, so they're upgrading the Gecko engine that they're using for that. There are a whole bunch of miscellaneous fixes. I haven't spotted anything that particularly fixes any titles in this last particular update. The previous update, which came out 2 weeks before that, had some authentication for WinHTTP module, and support for proxy bypass in WinINet. So it just seems like they're kind of doing mostly maintenance stuff at the moment, though there are game-specific bugs being closed all the time. Most of them seem to be fairly narrow rather than stuff that really opens up games that didn't previously work. But yeah, so we'll try and keep up with and go into a little bit of detail on wine updates as they come, because I think that's going to be of value to some people, because some of us still play Steam games via wine. I still play Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, I'm sure quite a few people do. I tend to pop in just when I want a game of Payday, and people in the chat are mentioning other games like Dota 2. Obviously that's coming, guys, just give it some time. What else are they mentioning? Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition.
That's what I thought it was, and I'm like, no, surely not.
Honestly, terrible. Right, so should we get
moving along?
You do all the yes, quickly moving along. You do the Humble stats site, Cheese. Do you want to talk about the latest Humble bundle?
Yeah, so this is the latest Humble bundle rather than the latest Humble weekly sale. The most recent Humble bundle was featured solely Double Fine titles, which was particularly exciting for me because I'm also fairly involved in the Double Fine community, and it was fun to watch the stats there. I honestly thought that we would have more Linux contributors than we did. And after talking to some people in the SteamLUG channel, it seems like some outstanding bugs in their earlier titles, Psychonauts, have kind of made a couple of people wary of, really embracing the studio, which is in some ways sad because being a little bit more on the inside, I can see that they're very enthusiastic and they're trying to do things right, but they're still finding their footing, as lots of people are these days. With Linux being so topical and people who would otherwise hadn't been supporting it starting to move across. But
Certainly.
we had Psychonauts, Brutal Legend, Stacking, Costume Quest, and the unreleased crowd-funded Double Fine adventure title as the core titles. And on the second week, all of the Amnesia Fortnight prototypes were released, but they're Windows only. But yeah, so it was pretty good bundle. I hadn't played Costume Quest or Stacking. I played a little bit of Stacking previously, but I hadn't played Costume Quest or Brutal Legend before. And I just, a year ago, I was a Tim Schafer fan who likes adventure games and stuff. But over the past 12 months, I've grown to deeply love Double Fine. They are a great group of people doing really interesting and exciting stuff. Their games are fantastic. Have you guys had a chance to play anything?
I have actually completed Costume Quest and Brutal Legend on a different platform, that being PS3. I did buy the bundle. I've popped into Brutal Legend for half an hour just before a friend popped by the other day. I've played Costume Quest. I'm really impressed with how well they've been ported, and I'm just really excited to see well-known games coming to our platform that you can go out to a shop and see the CDs on a shelf. So
I haven't played any of them.
Plus, the soundtrack for Brutal Legend, it's brilliant.
Yeah. So all the titles in this bundle were ported by Ed Rudd, who also goes by the handle of Urkel. He'd previously ported The Cave, which uses the same engine as Brutal Legend and all of Double Fine's other 3D titles. And from what I understand, the Double Fine guys have started doing some of the porting / packaging stuff themselves. I think they did some or most of the Mac versions of the titles that were new for this Humble Bundle. And I think they're starting to have a bit of a hand in the Linux stuff as well. So it's kind of cool to see them more directly engaging with that themselves. It's as cool as it is to have people like Ryan and Ed on board. It's also great to see developers who are personally themselves focused on that. As far as whether or not we're going to see the prototypes, I've asked and urged several times for this, but I can understand that they're, as prototypes that were made within a very short period of time, the focus was to explore possibility space for potential future games. And while those future games may support Linux, it sounds like Double Fine are keen to support all 3 major desktop platforms with future titles. I can understand that supporting additional platforms with prototypes that are really only there to see if a game should be made. I can kind of understand that providing additional cross-platform support isn't quite so important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they are just prototypes. They're something to throw an idea together to give the rest of the people in the company the same vision that you've got, and then they can see whether it's a workable game.
Exactly. So a bit of backstory on these prototypes is that they have come out of an event that Double Fine run internally called Amnesia Fortnight, where for 2 weeks they forget about all of their other projects and just do kind of a 2-week game jam to make a half dozen prototypes. And for them, that's kind of gotten them out of sticky situations a couple of times where they've had, they started off as a kind of single team company doing a huge monolithic title, and I don't think they've worked on any big titles that haven't been cancelled at some point. So they've kind of always had their future in this kind of hanging in this kind of dubious position. And the first Amnesia Fortnight kind of saved their bacon in that they then had a half dozen game concepts that they could take to publishers and pitch, and that's where Iron Brigade, Happy Action Theatre, and Once Upon a Monster came from, and of course Costume Quest and Stacking as well have come out of Amnesia Fortnight stuff. But I think it's like a really nice way for a game development studio to kind of ease the sort of burnout that you get when you focus on a single project, but also to just be able to do stuff that's a little bit more unexpected and a little less conventional, because in 2 weeks, when you're just doing a 2-week prototype, you can explore these kinds of things that you normally otherwise wouldn't be able to dedicate resources to.
Do you know if any of those, the first 3 games you mentioned, are coming either to PC or 3 platforms at all? Have they made any sort of mention of it? I know they're probably tied up with publishing rights with another company, which might be an issue.
Yeah, that really is the thing, from what I can tell. That I think they're keen to do everything that they've got control of, and I don't want to speak for Double Fine, but I get the impression that they don't want to invest a lot of resources into stuff that they don't have a lot of control over. It seems like they've had some less than positive experiences with some publishers that we don't need to name, and they're kind of, it seems like that over the last 12 months, or last year and a bit, they've been doing more community-oriented stuff and more less conventional stuff, like their most recent Amnesia Fortnight. They ran as a kind of Humble Bundle game jam type event, where everybody could watch what was going on as it happened and vote on which prototypes got made and that sort of stuff. And it's kind of really interesting to see them try these unconventional ways or less conventional ways of connecting with fans and raising funds to continue. It feels to me very much like they're trying to wrangle control over their future, and so while I don't have a lot of hope that some of the titles that they already have, which have some kind of that Double Fine don't directly own the rights to, may not see Linux ports, I do expect that most future things will.
Definitely a bright future for them then. So another game that's going to be coming to Linux soon is Thomas Was Alone by Mike Bithell. That's it's not the best looking of games, one could say, but it's got a brilliant story attached to it, and I mean they haven't given us an ETA of that, but that's coming out soon, I believe.
Yes, very soon. We kind of don't really have an ETA, but it feels like we'll probably get an announcement within the next week or so.
I saw they made an April Fool's joke about Thomas Was Alone. I don't know if you guys.
Oh yes, I saw that.
Yeah, where they said they use motion capture.
Ha!
It's the game is basically a box jumping around in a 2D side-scrolling world.
Yeah, I saw that. It was brilliant.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. That's I'll link to it in the show notes.
So I might have lined up a gamingonlinux.com interview with Mike Bethel about Thomas Was Alone when the Linux version is announced. So fingers crossed on that.
Great.
And Hotline Miami has gotten a Linux beta, from what I understand. People seem pretty excited about that. Somebody who's actually played the game should probably talk about that, because I haven't.
I also haven't.
Me neither.
Everyone can get into the beta for that. The password is HL and M.
Is that all lowercase?
It's all lowercase, yeah. It's basically Hotline Miami.
Yeah. Hotel Lima Mike.
Right, the next game, X3 Albion Preload. Is that out? Is it coming out? I don't.
Yeah, I think I have it in my games list.
Have you tried that?
I haven't downloaded it though. It's a matter of finding time. So I've got Albion Prelude, Reunion, and Terran Conflict in my games list now.
I think all the extra 3s are out.
According to Meklu, they are. So there we go. Go play X3.
I haven't actually played any of those games yet. I've spent like 10 minutes poking around in Reunion, and they look complex, but I'm very much looking forward to spending some time immersing myself in them because they look very rich. So while I can't sort of directly recommend them, I can say that my interest is most definitely piqued.
Alright. There's also the news about the Red Orchestra 2.
Yeah, so Liam from GamingOnLinux.com, which I'm also a guest writer for, managed to get some comments from Tripwire recently about Red Orchestra 2 coming to Linux, and in that is also a mention of Unreal 3 being licensable for Linux.
Yeah, but that's newer versions, not the one they used.
Yes.
And apparently they have a lot of assets that needs to be ported, and they wanted to check if it was viable for them to do it.
Yeah.
The Gaming on Linux article says they won't come. I discussed it with Liam, and he changed it so they might come. I think it changed it too.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it wasn't definite no. I couldn't read it anywhere. They said they were investigating it, but they had no firm plans, and I don't consider that a no.
Yeah, and for anybody who is asking developers for Linux support, even a no is not necessarily that decisive. When you run an organization that publishes stuff for people to play with, it's kind of, you don't want to prematurely announce stuff. If you tell people that you go, oh yeah, we're thinking of doing a Linux version, and then you eventually find that you don't have the skills or the patience or the interest to actually do that, then the amount of disappointment that you give people by saying that you were looking into it but never bothered to do it is, you want to avoid that kind of thing at all costs.
Yeah, exactly. Like Ike listed on Twitter.
Yeah, he said that he might be, he'd be happy to get involved in bringing Red Orchestra 2 to Linux, which got a lot of people's hopes up. And it's kind of sad that people are, even in that Gaming on Linux article, there's a comment that says something like, damn ridiculous, you and your vague promises and your broken ports.
That's a bit mean.
I'm glad I didn't buy Red Orchestra 2. I mean, it's mad.
Yeah.
Well, he did say on Twitter that we should buy Red Orchestra 2 because he might have some news for us.
It's a chicken and egg problem, though, isn't it? That they need to gauge the interest to see if the port's worth doing. So obviously you need to sort of get more Linux people interested in it. So I don't think he can be faulted for trying to get people interested in actually having the title. And from all I know, Red Orchestra 2 is quite a bit better than the first one. So I'd actually welcome it, because I don't really like playing the first one. Yeah, as everyone know from the event we had, it sucked.
The most interesting thing out of this particular article for me is news that there is an officially licensable Unreal Engine 3 license. Now, does that indicate that Unreal Engine 3 now has official vendor-provided Linux support? Or does it mean that Epic have been licensing the right to port to a platform? It's all kind of vague.
It sounds like the former, doesn't it? It sounds
does.
Like well, you've got it, here's some extra code you can use to do it, have fun or something. But I mean,
if that's the
it's
case,
the same as the games from, which Unreal was it? That we don't have a full reason why it didn't happen. And I think,
Unreal
again,
3.
it's going to be...
Or Unreal Tournament 3, sorry.
All of this stuff's just going to be stuff we're going to have to assume what's happened rather than properly knowing it. Unless, of course, someone wants to offer to license it, and then we'll... actually, we still wouldn't get the contract information, would we? Oh well.
No, it's all NDA stuff. But I find it very hard to believe that they would offer vendor-provided Linux support for Unreal Engine 3 without that information itself being public. This is the first time I've ever heard of the Unreal Engine 3 having vendor-provided Linux support. And it would have had to have happened after Dungeon Defenders were ported, because Ryan went and made a blog post about the port of Dungeon Defenders, not meaning that every other Unreal Engine 3 title was immediately now able to be ported. That it was really the convergence of his existing work.
That's still true, though, isn't it? Unreal Engine 3 is not like Source. They have minor versions that are quite different from each other.
This is true.
And just because a few games from that series work, that doesn't mean that the engine, as it's known, is sort of a collective. It doesn't mean that all titles that run on it will work. And I think that's some of the problem with these engines. They're not maintained in a way that if someone starts at the early series of it, that they couldn't move to a later one and still have the same support and not have to, port all their work, basically.
Yeah, that's true as well. But one would think that if there was an option to license a later version of the Unreal Engine, that's something that Ryan probably would have been aware of and would have mentioned.
So what Unreal games would we like to see ported?
Unreal.
I would put, Unreal's already got a port. It's just an old one.
Yeah, there hasn't been an actual Unreal game. There's only been UT3 in that kind of franchise that uses that engine.
How about Bulletstorm? Wasn't that based on the UE3?
I'm not sure. Let me look.
I'm not certain. The other thing I wonder is whether or not there might be some confused information coming out of Tripwire there. Maybe that could be referring to dedicated support, server support.
Apparently Bulletstorm is Unreal Engine 3.5, so I assume that's quite different.
Oh, okay.
Another slightly awkward thing is that the Unreal Engine 3 is one of two engines that Epic offer. The other one being slightly smaller scale, called UDK.
Boot gave us a link with all the games using Unreal Engine 3, and I don't think we have time if I mention all of them.
No. But as we're talking of engines, sorry to segue quickly, Gary's mod. Gary is currently working on porting it over to Linux. For those lucky people who have Gary's mod 13 beta, you can watch it crash on start at the moment. But he has been working on it all of today and yesterday, so at some point, soon, maybe, it might be working for you. Yeah,
and I wouldn't mind highlighting at this point in time that a lot of people got kind of cranky about Gary's April Fool's Day thing and his recent comments about having trouble with Ubuntu. I think it's probably worth recognizing that some of this is just Gary's character, and that's how he behaves about everything, not specifically Linux.
Yeah.
And that it's probably worth not taking those kind of comments too close to heart. But hopefully we'll see that soon, so that will be positive, I think, for people to have Gary's mod and the content and creativity that opens up. It's for some people it's the next best thing to Source Filmmaker, and for other people it's a gateway into games like Trouble in Terrorist Town, and for yet more people it's I don't know what it is. I've seen lots of people doing lots of very strange things with Gary's mod.
I'm excited for it either way. I understand Gary's comments with his cursor not working. That can be frustrating. And I don't think we should take it as, as some people did, that he was offending the entire community. I think he was just frustrated that he's a developer. He wants to be able to install Linux, work on his port, and it got in his way. But that sadly is the case of some proprietary chipset vendors have terrible hardware and they don't write good software either. So it's just unfortunate. As for his April Fool's joke, well, it's April Fool's, isn't it?
Yeah. You talked about Minecraft too, John? A new update or something?
I can, yes. I was chatting in SteamLUG earlier today and mentioned hay bales, and someone was like, "Oh, really, hay bales?" So obviously, I don't think everyone is following the new snapshots as they come out. In fact, I'm not even certain how many snapshots there have been since the last full release, which was 1.5.2. But they've recently added horses and stained clay, which means you can bake clay blocks in furnaces and then dye them with dyes. So we have 16 solid colour blocks, which is pretty brilliant. We have hay bales. They can be placed like wood blocks, and they've recently been patched in the snapshot yesterday to allow them to burn, which is probably the worst change possible. The other change that's been coming with recent Minecraft updates is they've got a new launcher, and they're currently getting, I'd say it's probably alpha stage at the moment because they're still working on it. But if you want to go to mojang.com and get to probably their recent blog post and download the new launcher and test it out, and they have links to post suggestions and bugs, and just go enjoy.
The new launcher it can open different versions, right?
Yeah, they've added the feature to be able to track all the different snapshots and major versions, and it's also part of at least the basics of mod support. You can put mods in a separate folder, and it means that every time the game updates, it's at the moment an awful lot of people drag and drop files into the Minecraft.jar file, and it's buggy and it's frustrating. And each time the game updates itself, it wipes those edits out. So they're looking to at least put basic mods built into the normal launcher, as well as texture packs, which they're moving into a sort of a new resource format. And it's looking quite good, so I'm quite excited.
Can you eat the horses?
I don't think they've added that meat yet. But if they did, I would hope they added sheep meat, because we're still waiting for a good bit of lamb, a bit of mutton.
You've been waiting for your mutton forever.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, let's move on to crowdfunding projects.
Alrighty. So Chasm, you were kind of excited about that as it closed in on its final ending thing. Do you want to talk about that?
I don't know what I want to say about Chasm.
It's pretty.
I'm excited by it, but I'm not sure how it's going to play. I mean, it's sort of a platforming Terraria for the style, for people who don't know it. I don't know. I mean, it got funded, so...
Yeah, they've also said that, I think, for the next several months, that pre-orders are going to count towards their stretch goals as well, so it'd be kind of nice to see... was that the one which had gender swap stretch goal that wasn't met?
I'm just checking the figures. Yes, it's $85,000 away from gender swapping.
For something that potentially is not as much content as, say, an extra area or some of the other bits and pieces, it kind of seems like it's way up there. When one would imagine that localization of gender-based pronouns and replacements for the character sprite would probably be the limit of the work that you'd need to do there.
The thing is, it is a stretch goal. It's an incentive to get people to pay more. I don't think any stretch goals are really fully respective of how much they would cost.
That's true.
And looking at this, I mean, something like achievements, even if it didn't meet its stretch goal, I'd expect them to put it in anyway if they got in through Greenlight. So, there are some things here that I'd actually expect them to do as updates to the game as it continues selling. So, I don't know. If you look at New Game Plus is 250, Gender Swap is 275, and then translations are 300. You'd think, well, Gender Swap really should be sort of 5,000, and the language translations need to be more like 50,000, really, for the sort of ratio of the amount of work to it.
I'm not saying that it's necessarily important to order stretch goals by the amount of work involved with doing them, but I kind of it feels like and maybe this is perhaps my own philosophical standing going into play here, but it feels like something like providing the ability to play as a female in a game is something that may not appeal to everybody, but probably should be everywhere anyway.
Certainly. I mean, stuff like Gender Swap, it should be the default for all games in this day and age, just because I have a twin sister. I don't really mention that often, but she cannot stand games that will not let her play as a female. And I can completely appreciate that.
Yeah. And, sometimes I play as female characters as well. It's not like
regularly. It's
specifically at home, away from the computer. No, it's not uncommon either, and I worry that people are it's not something that you really have to say needs to be in there to make, or that its only justification for being in there is to make things more accessible to female gamers. I think that's kind of potentially belittling the issue of gender equality.
Yeah. I don't know, I can appreciate her opinion, but I quite often say that if you're trying a narrative, that something like Uncharted with Nathan Drake or Tomb Raider with Lara Croft, it's hard to be able to swap that character for a different one, sex-wise, because of how the dynamics of the gender of that role play out with everyone else in the... You would pretty much have to, at least for the bulk of the content, either completely strip it out and reverse it, or you would have to do sort of Morrowind's approach, where pretty much everything isn't affected by gender unless you change a couple of variables, and their localization was quite sloppy in that regard. So I don't know.
I do feel like having games be gender neutral. I don't feel like there's much in, say, Half-Life, for example, that specifically requires Gordon to be male. And in that context, I don't have a problem with Gordon being male. I do kind of have a problem with the kind of misogynistic stuff that Duke Nukem is trying to reflect, though. Because...
Yes, it's terrible. That game is definitely stuck in the past, isn't it?
Yeah, I could never really get into it myself.
I played a reasonable amount of 3D at the time, but that was because, this engine looks brilliant. Again, showing my age. But I mean, who wants to wave money at a couple of pixels? I mean,
I did. And I still do.
Bless you, sort of.
So moving on, there are a bunch of recent crowdfunding campaigns and current crowdfunding campaigns, or at least that are interesting to me, that are kind of nowhere near making their goals, and I thought it might be interesting to have a quick chat about that. So topics or campaigns that I've noticed include things like Sons of Nor, Rawbots, and The Realm, which I've also made a bit of a fuss about. You guys got any thoughts as to what might be causing that? I mean, these three titles in particular seem very much like they would stand out on any platform as being worthwhile.
They really should, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's burnout from Kickstarters or that maybe they're just not the sort of games that people get really excited about. Even though The Realm, to me, I actually, because I was worried that it wouldn't make its target, I actually emailed someone I know at Sony. That sounds terrible, but I really would like that game funded, and they love those sort of narratives, so whatever. But robots, that would do brilliantly in schools, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, it's sort of the way you can build the robots is like Scratch. It's basically you join all the programming together with sort of Lego-like connections, and that would be brilliant. But no one seems to want to fund it. In the same way that there was quite a Minecraft-like. Do you remember that Kickstarter about 6 months ago? It had all those planets, and you could run around on the planets and hop to the other ones, and you can make rockets and everything and link them up. I've forgotten the name of it, but that managed to fail its Kickstarter as well, and that boggled my mind.
I've seen some people suggest that some of this is to do with more mainstream, renowned developers are starting to come onto Kickstarter and using it as a replacement for traditional publishing, which is, that's cool if people want to engage directly with their communities. But it does create a maybe a gap between indie developers and what people might term AAA developers engaging in crowdfunding campaigns, and does put a shift in people's expectations.
Well, sometimes the crowdfunding campaigns are like, give us money or we won't make the game, instead of we'll make this game but help us make it even better by giving us more.
Exactly.
I've seen quite a few campaigns that was quite, I don't know what you call it. They just wanted money. Otherwise, you could go,
I think the problem is Minecraft did exceptionally well being able to get people to fund its prototype, its alpha, and its beta. And an awful lot of people saw that, but then they don't want the risk of having dwindling sales and not being able to finish their game. And when they saw that there were quite a few large Kickstarters, again, was it Double Fine had one?
Yeah, I think the Double Fine Adventure, Wasteland 2, I think Planetary Annihilation was around the same time as well. Yeah. Those three sort of really big, high-profile projects.
And I think that changed people's expectations from taking Kickstarter as something that you'd ask for a small amount and have some stretch goals, and it would encourage people to fund your game and do some extra stuff. And now people want a large amount, so it puts people off even wanting to fund it. And for some of these projects that are done by two people, and really what they should be doing is probably going to Greenlight and Desura and maybe GOG or Humble and trying to get, a small amount of sales and starting off and sort of rolling from there. They're trying this sort of big Kickstarter push, and it just isn't working. And I think that's going to burn some of these projects, because people are going to see that it's been on Kickstarter, so there should be loads of publicity, and no one's funded it, so no one must want the project. And I think I'm really worried that some of these really good ideas are going to get ignored because they've got rejected by Kickstarter, which is going to give VCs basically the idea that this isn't a profitable venture.
Yeah, there's that. I think there's also something, and this is kind of I don't really know the best way to phrase it, but there's kind of an artistry involved, and like anything that can engage with and connect with people, things which aren't within the sphere of people's experience have the potential to have the most impact. Nobody's going to fund something if they can't see the end result. If it's not something that's derivative of something that already exists, it's inherently difficult to foresee the end result. So crowdfunding kind of really only works for stuff that's immediately obvious to your potential backers.
Definitely. Right, so we had one last thing to mention before we sum up, and that was your recent article.
Yes, I'll post a link.
If you want to mention it, of course.
Yeah, so I had a chat with the people doing the Realm, and I sort of said, hey, because they started with Linux as a stretch goal, and I said, hey, look, this isn't really the best way to engage Linux users. It's probably going to do more to count against you than it is going to benefit you. And so I've had this conversation maybe, I don't know, maybe a dozen times over the past year or so with assorted developers about why dangling Linux support out there as a stretch goal kind of thing just really isn't a healthy way to bring your community together. Because that's what stretch goals are. They're meant to be milestones or markers to rally your existing backers behind. And if Linux exists as a stretch goal, then it's fair to say that no Linux users will back the project until the stretch goal has been met. So until that point, there's nothing in a Linux stretch goal for the existing backing community. And you end up with people saying that Linux support is a waste of resources, and we've seen that. There was that lovely thread in the Project Eternity forums, which was kind of saying that the developers shouldn't be wasting resources on Linux when they could be using those resources to make more content for the game. Star Citizen had a few threads where people were begging them to not consider Linux support, even though if it does happen, it'll be thanks to upstream support provided by Crytek. So it opens up the door for your backing community to second guess your development decisions if you're a crowdfunding campaign. But that article's been really good. I've seen a lot of feedback from that, which has been really positive. So feel free to share that with any developers if you want to kind of expose some thoughts as to why presenting Linux as a stretch goal could be unhealthy or might not be in their best interest. I mean, at the end, I do a little bit of a summary of the points. I think the most critical one is that if you feel that there is an amount of money that you need to raise, it's better for you and it's better for the Linux gamers that you want to attract if you don't mention Linux until you've reached that amount. And that way you can make a big fuss about it. And the first impression that Linux users will get will be one of, hey, we're supporting your platform now, which is ultimately going to give more positive outcomes than this kind of, well, we might support your platform, at which point many Linux users just turn around and go, well, I'm not going to pay attention to this project anymore. And they don't hear about the update when the stretch goal has been met or what have you. A couple of other things I want to mention on the crowdfunding front quickly before we wrap up is that Maya is getting a sort of pre-alpha engine testy thing that is more bigger than the previous engine test, and that should be going up within the next couple of hours. I think I just saw Simon Roth on Twitter saying that he was having trouble with dependencies. So this is for backers only who've got alpha access, but they're kind of presenting it more as an engine test rather than a more complete alpha run of the game. So that's kind of exciting for those of us who are in that. I had a brief conversation with Simon yesterday morning about whether or not they'd be offering 32-bit support, because they, I think that's worth mentioning. Now that we're at a point where people are starting to look at doing 64-bit only, stuff like that needs to be highlighted so that people don't end up buying stuff that they can't play without doing an upgrade. So I've kind of encouraged them to label their stuff as 64-bit only if it's going to be that way, because their initial, very first engine test was done like that. And the other thing was Planetary Annihilation. Guys did a survey asking people what platform they were on and whether or not they'd pledged enough to get into the beta or the alpha. And looking at it right now, the number of Linux users who have responded to this survey account for 14% of all respondents. So that's a really positive figure, I think, and it's hopefully will lead to a simultaneous alpha and beta launch of Planetary Annihilation.
Yep, looking forward to that.
I don't know how much the extra stuff is. You can find it out on the Planetary Annihilation site. We will provide a link somewhere. But yeah, they haven't announced whether or not there's going to be Linux support in the alpha or beta at all. I hope that this survey will, encourage that to happen. But since nothing's been announced, I don't want to, tell people to run out and pick it up. It's best not to have false expectations. The guys are telling me I got to wrap up, so I should probably be quiet now.
Yes. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
We obviously this is our first episode, so we don't know what we want to talk about. We don't know what you want to listen to. We have set up an email if you want to drop us questions, feedback, etc. It's cast@steamlug.org.
Yeah, let's do that, and everyone can tell us how bad we were. And depending upon what kind of email we get, we might end up doing like a quick question and answer thing at the end of our next cast, if we've got sort of specific questions.
Yeah. And thanks for listening, everyone.
Well, thanks guys, that was fun.